the end of my ashram days, my biggest experience about trusting goodness was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. I have had the good fortune of not having experienced abuse except for once, and this was it. And I've written it up, and I'm going to give you a little bit more of a little more layers of this. I was 28. I was at a gathering of our spiritual community, and I had just had a miscarriage. It was 2 days after a miscarriage. And I had been worried that maybe the heat of the desert had, because it was very, very hot and I was outside and doing a lot of exercise, had caused it. And that was mentioned to the spiritual teacher. Well, we were all gathered, and in that gathering of a couple hundred people, he had me stand up in front of everybody and basically blamed me for losing the child. He said that, you were willing to have sex, but it was really your own ego that wanted to just work, and you're selfish, and you didn't really care about having a child, and that killed the child. And so, as you can hear, that's abuse. And over the next few days, I was devastated because this is my community and this is my teacher. And I spent hours in this little Gurdwara. Gurdwara is a Sikh temple, but this is kind of like a one-person Sikh temple, meditating and praying. And it came down to, do I believe his condemnation of my my badness, personal badness? And remember, in the hierarchy, he had a lot of power. He was a male, and he was the top of the hierarchy, a lot of authority. And what he had said tapped into my own already existing identity of bad self, my own shame around being a driven person and being self-centered and being, egocentric and ambitious and all the things that I didn't like myself for. So it was like, well, wait a minute, is it true I'm bad? And so I just meditated a lot. And the process that really turned me towards healing was, and this is why I brought up the fear thinking, as I went from all the swirl of I'm bad, or am I bad, or how could this happen? He wouldn't have done it if there wasn't something wrong with me, to I made a kind of U-turn. I said, okay, stop the thinking. And I went to my heart, and I knew that all I could do was be with the waves. Like I had to go under the thoughts to the waves of hurt, of grief around betrayal, the anger, the shame. So the process was drop the fear thinking and just go directly into the rawness of the waves. And it was in that presence that a quality of self-compassion and tenderness emerged that became so filled with light, so full. It was so tender and so big that I realized that this was who I was. That was more true than any of the stories either of us, him or me, were telling me about me, And so then the after the rain was, I just stayed a long time in that presence. I kept saying, this is it, just rest in this, just rest in this. And just to follow up on the story, the forgiveness became possible because it was just as limiting to stay in the abused victim story as it was anything else. It wasn't because, oh, he deserves to be forgiven. It was just for the freedom of my own heart. And now I can look at him and see a being that's very mixed, that he's not alive anymore, but him being driven by his own demons and whatever. And I left the community and I warned other people because I didn't want other people treated that way. So it was ultimately empowering and at the time devastating. And I share it because it had everything to do with the seeds of real trust. Not that I won't cause harm and haven't caused harm, but that compassionate presence, that openness, wakefulness, tenderness is more the truth of who I am than any of the waves.